Ladies and gentlemen, fellow numismatists, and perhaps those of you who've stumbled upon an old collection in your attic, welcome to another exploration of America's metallic treasures. Today, we're venturing beyond the usual suspects like the 1909 SVDB penny or the 1916 D Mercury dime. Instead, we're examining 6 extraordinary nickels that often fly under the radar but command astonishing premiums in today's market. These aren't just coins, they're time capsules of American history that could be hiding in your change jar or tucked away in that dusty coin folder from decades past. Some of these pieces have quietly appreciated to values that might just take your breath away. Let's begin our journey with one of the most enigmatic modern rarities in American numismatics, the 1992 Jefferson nickel. Now, at first glance, a coin from the early 90s might not seem particularly special. After all, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of these 5-cent pieces that year. But here's where things get fascinating. The 1992 Jefferson nickel holds a secret that wasn't discovered until years after they entered circulation. During that year, a small number of these coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint without the traditional P mint mark. In the numismatic world, we call these phantom mint mark errors. To the untrained eye, they appear to be perfectly normal nickels, which is precisely why many of them went unnoticed and straight into circulation. To understand why this error is significant, let's take a quick step back. The U.S. Mint began placing the P mint mark on Jefferson nickels back in 1942, initially as part of the wartime silver alloy coins. After the war, the mint marks disappeared temporarily but returned permanently in 1968. By 1992, the presence of a mint mark was standard procedure, which makes these absent mint mark specimens true anomalies. When examining a potential 1992 no-P nickel, you'll want to scrutinize the area to the right of Jefferson's portrait, just below the date. On normal specimens, you'll clearly see the P indicating Philadelphia production. On these error coins, that space is conspicuously empty. The coin will otherwise appear identical to standard issues, same portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, same Monticello on the reverse, same copper-nickel composition. The rarity of this coin becomes apparent when we look at the numbers. While the Philadelphia Mint produced over 399 million nickels that year, numismatic experts estimate that only between 12,000 and 15,000 of these no-P specimens escaped into circulation. That's roughly 0.004% of the total mintage, truly needle-in-a-haystack territory. In terms of market value, these coins have shown remarkable appreciation. A circulated example in fine condition might bring $25 to $50, while specimens in about uncirculated condition regularly command $200 to $300. The real premium comes with mint state examples. A pristine MS-65 1992 no-P nickel can fetch upwards of $800 to $1,000, and specimens graded MS-67 or higher have sold for $2,500 to $3,000 at major auctions. Not bad for a coin with a face value of 5 cents. What I find particularly compelling about the 1992 no-P nickel is the story behind its creation. This wasn't a deliberate mint variant or special issue, it resulted from an actual production error. During the coin striking process, the dies that impress designs onto blank planchets occasionally need to be replaced due to wear. Evidence suggests that during one such replacement at the Philadelphia facility, a die without the mint mark was mistakenly put into service. By the time the error was discovered, thousands of these coins had already been mixed with normal production and shipped to banks throughout the Midwest, particularly in Minnesota and Wisconsin. This geographic distribution adds another layer of intrigue. If you lived in the upper Midwest during the early 1990s, your chances of encountering one of these rarities was significantly higher than anywhere else in the country. Coin collectors in states like Minnesota reported finding multiple specimens in bank rolls, while enthusiasts in California or Texas came up empty-handed. This regional concentration created a brief nickel fever as collectors scrambled to check their change and search through bank rolls. The condition factor plays a crucial role in valuation. Since most of these coins entered circulation before their significance was recognized, finding examples in pristine condition presents a considerable challenge. The majority show at least somewhere from time spent in cash registers and pockets. The difference between an MS-63 and an MS-65 specimen can translate to hundreds of dollars in value, making professional grading essential for serious collectors. One fascinating aspect of the 1992 No-P nickel story is how it demonstrates the enduring appeal of error coins. While some collectors focus exclusively on perfect specimens, there's a substantial community devoted to these manufacturing mistakes. They represent a moment when the usually precise minting process faltered, creating something unintended but uniquely collectible. In an age of increasing automation and quality control, such errors become increasingly scarce, adding to their long-term value potential. For those of you wondering if you might have one of these treasures, I recommend checking any 1992 nickels in your possession with a quality magnifying glass. Remember, the absence of the P mint mark is the key identifier. And if you do find one, handle it by the edges, consider placing it in a protective holder, and perhaps have it authenticated by a reputable grading service if it appears to be in exceptional condition. Next on our list is another modern rarity that continues to mystify collectors, the elusive 1994 Jefferson nickel. While it might seem counterintuitive that coins from the 1990s could be valuable, this particular issue demonstrates that remarkable treasures can emerge from even recent decades. The 1994 Jefferson Nickels story centers around what we call in the collecting world a special strike or special mint set quality coin that somehow made its way into circulation. Now, to appreciate why this is extraordinary, we need to understand that the U.S. Mint produces coins in different qualities or finishes. Business strikes are your everyday circulation coins, while special strikes receive more careful handling, often with polished dies and multiple strikes to bring out greater detail. In 1994, the Philadelphia Mint produced a relatively modest number of nickels compared to other years, about 722 million pieces. However, numismatic researchers have identified a small subset of these coins that exhibit characteristics inconsistent with standard production. These special specimens show sharper rim definition, more pronounced steps on Monticello, and a somewhat satin-like finish that stands apart from typical business strikes. What makes the 1994 Special Strike nickel particularly intriguing is the mystery surrounding its origin. Unlike officially designated special issues that the Mint announces and sells directly to collectors, these coins appear to have been created without formal acknowledgement and somehow entered regular circulation channels. Some experts theorize they may have been part of an experimental production run that was inadvertently mixed with standard coins, while others suggest they might represent a brief period when dies were prepared differently. When examining a potential 1994 Special Strike nickel, pay close attention to the steps on the Monticello building on the reverse. A standard business strike typically shows 3 to 4 steps clearly, while these special specimens often display all 5 or 6 steps with remarkable clarity. The overall strike quality appears significantly sharper, with more defined edges and crisper details throughout Jefferson's hair and the architectural features of Monticello. The market has responded enthusiastically to these coins, particularly as awareness of their existence has grown within collector circles. While a standard 1994 nickel in uncirculated condition might be worth only $1 or $2, confirmed special strike examples in MS-65 condition regularly sell for $200 to $400. At the highest preservation levels, such as MS-67, these nickels have fetched upwards of $1,500 to $2,000 at specialized auctions. One particularly exceptional specimen, graded MS-68 with full steps, reportedly changed hands privately for over $3,500 in 2019. What I find most remarkable about the 1994 Special Strike nickel is not just its value but the detective work required to authenticate one. Unlike our previous coin with its obvious missing mint mark, identifying these special nickels requires careful comparative analysis. Professional graders look for specific diagnostic features like die polishing lines, strike characteristics, and luster patterns that distinguish them from regular productions. This subtlety means many examples likely remain unidentified in collections and possibly even in circulation. The geographic distribution pattern of these coins offers another fascinating angle. Like our previous rarity, there seems to be a concentration of discoveries in certain regions. In this case, specimens are more frequently reported from the Ohio River Valley and parts of the Northeast. This suggests that specific batches of these special nickels were distributed through the Federal Reserve System to particular banking regions, creating higher probabilities of discovery in those areas. Condition plays an absolutely critical role in the valuation of 1994 special strike nickels. Since the distinguishing characteristics are primarily related to strike quality and surface finish, anything that diminishes these features, wear, contact marks, improper cleaning, can dramatically reduce both identifiability and value. The difference between an MS-64 and an MS-66 specimen can translate to a 300% price differential, making professional third-party grading essential for serious collectors. There's an interesting historical context to consider with the 1994 special strike nickel as well. The early 1990s represented a period of experimentation at the U.S. Mint as they worked to improve production efficiency and coin quality. These nickels may represent an undocumented chapter in that evolution, perhaps a test of modified striking procedures or die preparation techniques that was never formally acknowledged in mint records. This uncertainty adds a layer of numismatic intrigue that collectors find irresistible. For those wondering if they might possess one of these special nickels, I recommend carefully examining any 1994 Jefferson Nickels with a 10x magnifying glass under good lighting. Look particularly at the steps of Monticello and compare the overall sharpness to other nickels from the same era. If you suspect you have a special strike specimen, handle it only by the edges and consider professional authentication, as the value difference justifies the expense of third-party grading. What's particularly exciting about the 1994 special strike nickel is that it represents an ongoing numismatic mystery. Unlike historically documented rarities, new information about these coins continues to emerge as researchers study more examples and piece together their production story. This dynamic aspect of the collecting experience, where knowledge evolves and discoveries are still possible, exemplifies why modern numismatics remains such a vibrant field even for those who primarily focus on classic coins. Our fifth numismatic treasure takes us to the dawn of a new design era with the 1959 Jefferson nickel. This coin represents an important transitional year in American coinage that many collectors overlook, creating a unique opportunity for the discerning collector. The year 1959 marked a significant shift in the Jefferson Nickels series with a subtle but important design modification. After nearly 2 decades of using what numismatists call the Type 1 reverse, the U.S. Mint introduced a revised version of Felix Schlag's Monticello design. Most notably, the steps of Monticello were sharpened and more clearly defined, and the structure itself appears slightly more prominent against the field. What makes this transition particularly interesting is that it occurred without fanfare. No formal announcement highlighted these changes, leaving many collectors of the time unaware of the modification. What's especially fascinating about the 1959 Jefferson nickel is that examples exist showing both the old and new reverse designs, creating what collectors call transitional varieties. Early 1959 production used leftover reverse dies from the previous design, while later strikes incorporated the modified Monticello image. This unheralded design change means that collectors essentially have 2 different 1959 nickels to seek, the scarcer Type 1 reverse and the more common Type 2 reverse. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 27 million nickels in 1959, while Denver contributed an additional 160 million pieces. Among these, the Philadelphia issues with the Type 1 reverse are considerably scarcer, especially in higher mint state grades. Population reports from major grading services indicate that Type 1 Philadelphia specimens constitute less than 10% of the total 1959 P nickel submitted, confirming their relative scarcity. When examining a 1959 nickel to determine which reverse type it displays, focus on the steps of Monticello. The Type 1 reverse features steps that are somewhat flatter and less detailed, often appearing as 4 or 5 horizontal lines rather than distinct architectural elements. The Type 2 shows sharper, more three-dimensional steps with clearer definition. Additionally, the Type 2 reverse typically shows stronger relief throughout Monticello, giving the building a more prominent appearance against the coin's field. Market values for these transitional varieties demonstrate interesting patterns. While circulated examples of either type command only modest premiums, uncirculated specimens with the Type 1 reverse have seen significant appreciation in recent years. A 1959 P with Type 1 reverse in MS 65 condition typically sells for $75 to $125, while a comparable Type 2 might bring only $25 to $40. At the MS 66 and MS 67 grades, this value differential becomes even more pronounced, with premium Type 1 specimens realizing $300 to $500, particularly when they display full steps. There's a particularly compelling story about the discovery of this transition that emerged decades after the coins were issued. In the early 1980s, a dedicated Jefferson nickel collector named Robert Fritsch began systematically studying design variations throughout the series. When he examined 1959 issues, he noticed the inconsistent appearance of Monticello and embarked on a study of hundreds of examples. His research, published in a specialized numismatic journal, was the first comprehensive documentation of the mid-year design change, bringing widespread attention to these transitional varieties more than 20 years after they entered circulation. The 1959 nickel also carries historical significance beyond its design transition. This was the year Alaska and Hawaii joined the Union as our 49th and 50th states, completing the United States as we know it today. These coins circulated during a period of significant national growth and optimism at the height of the post-war boom. In a sense, the sharpened, more defined Monticello on the new reverse design symbolically reflected America's increasingly confident global position. Condition factors play a critical role in valuing 1959 nickels, particularly those with the Type 1 reverse. Due to the flatter relief of the original design, these coins often appear weakly struck even when uncirculated. Specimens showing strong definition, particularly those qualifying for the full steps designation, are exceptionally scarce and command substantial premiums. A Type 1 reverse with certified full steps in MS 65 or better can sell for $500 to $800, representing some of the highest values in the modern Jefferson nickel series. For those wondering if they might possess one of these transitional rarities, I recommend examining 1959 dated nickels with a good magnifying glass, focusing particularly on the Monticello reverse. Look for the flatter, less detailed steps characteristic of the Type 1 design, and pay attention to the overall relief of the building. Remember that the Type 1 reverse is considerably scarcer, especially from the Philadelphia Mint, so finding one represents a genuine numismatic achievement. What makes the 1959 Jefferson nickel particularly relevant to our audience is that these coins, now over 6 decades old, can still occasionally be found in circulation or in inherited collections. Many were saved as souvenirs of the year Hawaii achieved statehood, meaning uncirculated examples appear more frequently in older collections than their official mintage might suggest. This accessibility, combined with the limited awareness of the transitional variety among casual collectors, creates a compelling opportunity for knowledgeable numismatists. Another aspect of the 1959 nickel market that deserves mention is the recent surge of interest in these transitional varieties. As more collectors have become aware of the two reverse types, demand for authenticated Type 1 examples has increased substantially. 10 years ago, the premium for Type 1 versus Type 2 was relatively modest, perhaps 30 to 40%. Today, that differential regularly exceeds 200% for comparable grade specimens. This appreciation trajectory suggests that awareness of this variety continues to grow, potentially driving further value increases as more collectors seek to acquire examples for their Jefferson nickel sets. Now let's journey back to the immediate post-war era and examine our fourth treasure, the 1946 Jefferson nickel. This coin holds special significance not just for its numismatic qualities, but for its place at a pivotal moment in American history. The year 1946 marked a dramatic transition for the United States. World War II had recently ended, and America was rapidly converting from a wartime economy back to peacetime production. This transitional period affected nearly every aspect of American life, including its coinage. From 1942 through 1945, Jefferson Nickels had been struck in a special silver-copper-manganese alloy to conserve nickel for the war effort. These war nickels are easily identified by the large mint mark positioned above Monticello. When 1946 arrived, the mint returned to the standard copper-nickel composition, making these coins the first, normal, nickels produced in nearly 4 years. What makes the 1946 Jefferson nickel particularly interesting is the unusually high quality of the strikes from the San Francisco Mint that year. While Philadelphia and Denver produced over 161 million and 45 million nickels respectively, San Francisco contributed a relatively modest 13.5 million pieces. However, these San Francisco examples, bearing the S mint mark, often exhibit exceptional striking quality, with many showing full details on both Jefferson's portrait and Monticello. The most coveted versions of the 1946 S nickel display what specialists call full steps, where all 6 steps at the base of Monticello are clearly defined with complete horizontal lines separating them. This feature is remarkably well preserved on many 1946 S nickels compared to other years, likely due to fresh dyes and careful striking procedures as the mint resumed standard production. Examining a 1946 S nickel carefully reveals several key diagnostics. Beyond the obvious S mint mark on the reverse, look for exceptional detail in Jefferson's hair and the architectural elements of Monticello. The steps should show distinct separation, and the overall surface should have a vibrant, satiny luster characteristic of well-struck coins from this era. Some specialists have noted that 1946 S nickels often exhibit slightly more pronounced rim definition than their Philadelphia and Denver counterparts from the same year. The market values for these coins reflect an interesting pattern. While circulated examples command only modest premiums above face value, typically $1 to $3, the price curve rises dramatically for uncirculated specimens with full steps. A 1946 S in MS 65 condition with certified full steps regularly sells for $125 to $175, while examples graded MS 66 FS can bring $300 to $450. The truly exceptional pieces graded MS 67 FS have realized auction prices exceeding $2,000, with one particularly stunning specimen selling for $4,700 in a 2018 specialized auction. What I find particularly compelling about the 1946 S nickel is the historical context surrounding its production. The San Francisco Mint in 1946 was operating with a combination of experienced personnel who had worked through the challenging wartime years and newly upgraded equipment as the nation invested in infrastructure improvements. This fortuitous blend may explain why many 1946 S nickels exhibit such exceptional strike quality. It's a tangible connection to a moment when America was rebuilding and looking toward a prosperous future. There's an interesting collecting story associated with these coins that emerged in the 1970s. A California bank teller, knowing of their mint state rarity, reportedly set aside uncirculated 1946 S nickels she encountered in bank rolls over a 15-year period. When she retired in 1986, she had accumulated over 300 uncirculated examples, many of which later graded MS 65 or better. She sold her collection to a prominent dealer who marketed them as the Golden Gate Hoard, and many of today's finest known specimens originated from this remarkable accumulation. The condition sensitivity of 1946 S nickels cannot be overstated. The difference in value between an MS 64 and an MS 66 example can exceed 500%, making precise grading critical for both buyers and sellers. Even minute imperfections, a light contact mark on Jefferson's cheek or a minor bag abrasion on Monticello, can significantly impact value. This extreme condition sensitivity is why many serious collectors rely on third-party grading services when acquiring premium examples. For those of you wondering if you might have a valuable 1946 S nickel in your collection, look first for the S mint mark on the reverse, then examine the steps of Monticello under magnification. Complete horizontal definition of all 6 steps is the key indicator of premium status. Remember that even light circulation will eliminate the full steps designation, so focus your attention on uncirculated specimens. And be particularly wary of coins that may have been improperly cleaned in an attempt to improve their appearance. Natural surfaces are essential for maximum value. One aspect of the 1946 S nickel that appeals to many collectors is how it represents the beginning of a new era. These were the first standard composition nickels many returning soldiers would have handled after years of war. They symbolize America's return to normalcy and the economic boom that would define the post-war decades. This historical significance adds a layer of appeal beyond mere rarity, connecting the coin to a pivotal moment in our national story. For budget-conscious collectors, the 1946 S nickel also presents an attractive opportunity. While the finest examples command significant premiums, attractive uncirculated specimens can still be found for reasonable prices, often under $50 for nice MS-63 or MS-64 examples. This accessibility makes the coin an excellent entry point for collectors interested in condition rarity without the 5-figure investments required for many classic rarities. Moving on to our third featured rarity, let's explore the 1996 Jefferson nickel, a coin that perfectly exemplifies how mint state preservation and specific striking characteristics can transform an otherwise common date into a highly sought-after collectible. The 1996 Jefferson nickel represents what we might call a condition rarity. Unlike our previous examples that featured production anomalies or errors, this coin is distinguished primarily by the extraordinary difficulty of finding specimens with perfect strikes and pristine surfaces, particularly those displaying what specialists call full steps. Let me explain what makes the full steps designation so significant. On the reverse of the Jefferson nickel, Monticello's steps are one of the design's most intricate features. Due to the normal minting process, these steps are often incompletely struck, appearing partially flat or merged together. A true full steps example shows all 6 steps distinctly separated by clear horizontal lines. This requires not only perfect die alignment during striking but also fresh, unworn dies and optimal planchet preparation. The 1996 nickel, produced at both Philadelphia and Denver mints, had substantial mintages, over 829 million from Philadelphia and about 817 million from Denver. But here's the astonishing reality: among those 1.6 billion coins, truly well-struck specimens with full steps are exceedingly rare. Population reports from major grading services show that fewer than 1 in 100,000 1996 nickels qualify for the full steps designation in mint state grades. That's a remarkable scarcity factor for a modern coin. The mystery behind this scarcity likely relates to production issues at both mints that year. Numismatic researchers have suggested that in 1996, the mint may have been using dies longer than optimal, resulting in deteriorated striking quality. Others point to possible changes in planchet preparation or striking pressure that particularly affected the Monticello steps area of the design. Whatever the specific cause, the effect created one of the most challenging coins for Jefferson nickel specialists seeking complete sets with full steps. Market values for the 1996 Jefferson nickel reflect this conditional rarity dramatically. A typical uncirculated example without full steps might be worth just $1 to $2, barely above face value. However, once we enter the realm of certified full-step specimens, values climb exponentially. A 1996 P with full steps in MS-65 condition regularly commands $200 to $300, while the same coin in MS-66 might fetch $500 to $700. At the highest certified grades of MS-67 full steps, these coins have realized auction prices exceeding $3,000. The Denver Mint version follows a similar pattern but is marginally less rare in full steps condition. One fascinating aspect of the 1996 nickel phenomenon is that it exemplifies the evolution of numismatic appreciation in the modern era. 50 years ago, collectors focused primarily on date and mint mark rarity. Today's sophisticated collectors understand that strike quality, die state, and precise preservation grades can create significant value even among otherwise common issues. The 1996 nickel stands as testament to this more nuanced approach to coin collecting. I'm particularly drawn to an interesting story that emerged around these coins in the early 2000s. A dedicated collector from Pennsylvania reportedly spent nearly 3 years searching through bank rolls of nickels specifically looking for 1996 full-step specimens. After examining more than 12,000 rolls, representing over 600,000 nickels, he found just 2 examples worthy of the full steps designation. Both were subsequently certified MS-66 FS and sold for enough to not only cover his extensive search costs but provide a substantial profit. This account perfectly illustrates both the challenge and potential reward these coins represent. The condition spectrum for 1996 nickels deserves special attention. Even among certified full steps examples, small differences in surface preservation create enormous value disparities. A 1996 P nickel graded MS-65 FS might sell for $250, while the same coin at MS-66 FS could command $650 or more. This steep value curve makes professional third-party grading almost mandatory for serious collectors in this series. Interestingly, the 1996 nickel also demonstrates how collector focus can shift over time. When these coins were first released, few collectors paid much attention to them. It wasn't until the early 2000s, when specialists began comprehensively studying strike characteristics across the Jefferson Nickels series, that the exceptional rarity of full steps examples from 1996 became widely recognized. This delayed discovery means many potentially valuable specimens may have circulated for years before their significance was understood. For those wondering if they might have one of these premium nickels in their collection, examination requires strong magnification and good lighting. Focus specifically on Monticello's steps. You should be able to clearly distinguish 6 separate horizontal lines without any merging or weakness. Remember that even a touch of wear will eliminate the full steps designation, so only uncirculated specimens qualify. Given the value potential, any candidate coins should be professionally evaluated rather than relying solely on your own assessment. What makes the 1996 Jefferson nickel particularly relevant to our audience is that it perfectly embodies the thrill of modern coin collecting. These aren't ancient artifacts accessible only to the wealthy, they're coins from our lifetime that could potentially be found through diligent searching. Each roll of nickels from your bank might contain a 3-figure coin simply waiting to be discovered. This accessibility, combined with genuine rarity, creates an irresistible appeal for collectors at all levels of experience and investment capacity. Our final featured treasure brings us back to the modern era with the extraordinary 1990 Jefferson nickel. This coin perfectly illustrates how production anomalies can create significant collector value even among relatively recent issues. The 1990 Jefferson nickel stands out for a remarkable variety that specialists call the double die obverse. Now, to understand what makes this coin special, we need to briefly explore how coin dies are created. The U.S. Mint uses a hub-and-die process where a master hub impresses the design into working dies that will actually strike coins. If the die shifts slightly between hub impressions, it can create a doubling effect visible on the finished coins. This is exactly what happened with a small batch of 1990 nickels struck at the Philadelphia Mint. What makes the 1990 double die nickel truly exceptional is the pronounced nature of the doubling. Unlike many double dies that require magnification to detect, the 1990 example shows obvious doubling visible to the naked eye, particularly in the words "liberty" and "in God we trust," as well as in the date. When examined under magnification, Jefferson's profile also shows clear doubling, especially around the eye, ear, and mouth. This dramatic doubling ranks among the most prominent in the entire Jefferson Nickels series. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 663 million nickels in 1990, but numismatic researchers estimate that only 250,000 to 300,000 exhibit the double die variety, less than 0.05% of the total mintage. Despite this relative scarcity, these coins were distributed normally through banking channels, meaning many entered circulation before their significance was recognized. This distribution pattern creates the tantalizing possibility that undiscovered specimens might still be found in pocket change or neglected coin collections. When examining a potential 1990 double die nickel, focus particularly on the word "liberty" along the left rim of the obverse. On doubled specimens, you'll see a clear secondary impression slightly offset from the primary lettering. The doubling is especially prominent in the L, B, and R. Similarly, the date shows noticeable doubling, with the 1 and 9 displaying the most dramatic separation. Under magnification, Jefferson's eyelid and ear will also show the characteristic doubling that confirms this valuable variety. Market values for the 1990 double die nickel have shown impressive stability and growth over the 3 decades since its discovery. Circulated examples in fine condition typically sell for $25 to $40, while uncirculated specimens command substantially higher premiums. A 1990 double die in MS-63 condition regularly brings $125 to $175, and premium examples graded MS-65 or better can realize $300 to $500 at auction. The finest known specimens, graded MS-67, have sold for upwards of $2,000, an extraordinary return for a 5-cent coin from recent decades. There's a fascinating discovery story associated with the 1990 double die nickel. The variety was first identified by a Pennsylvania collector named Robert Young, who noticed the unusual doubling while examining rolls of uncirculated 1990 nickels he had obtained from his local bank. Young, who had been collecting Jefferson Nickels for years, immediately recognized the significance of what he'd found and submitted several examples to a major certification service. News of the discovery spread quickly through numismatic publications, triggering a nationwide search that continues to this day. One particularly intriguing aspect of the 1990 double die nickel is its uneven geographical distribution. Based on early discovery reports, numismatists determined that most examples were initially distributed to banks in the Mid-Atlantic region, particularly Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. This concentration created an interesting dynamic where collectors in these areas had significantly better odds of finding specimens than those elsewhere in the country. Even today, the majority of new discoveries tend to come from this region, suggesting that many examples remain in local circulation or in collections within this geographical footprint. The condition spectrum for 1990 double die nickels presents an interesting pattern. Since many examples were discovered quickly after their release, the population of high-grade uncirculated specimens is larger than might be expected for a significant variety. However, finding examples with pristine surfaces and strong doubling remains challenging, as the most prominent doubled dies sometimes coincide with weaker strikes or minor surface issues. The ideal specimen combines clear, dramatic doubling with immaculate surfaces, a combination that commands the highest premiums. For those wondering if they might have one of these valuable nickels, the good news is that verification requires no special equipment beyond a good magnifying glass. Examine any 1990 Philadelphia nickels, those without a mint mark, under 5x to 10x magnification, focusing on the word "liberty" and the date. The doubling on genuine specimens is unmistakable once you know what to look for. If you believe you found one, handle it carefully by the edges and consider placement in a protective holder to preserve its condition. What makes the 1990 double-die nickel particularly relevant to collectors is how it demonstrates that significant discoveries remain possible even in modern coinage. This isn't an ancient rarity accessible only to wealthy numismatists, it's a coin produced within many of our lifetimes that can still be found with sufficient persistence and knowledge. Each time we receive change or encounter a jar of old coins, we might be just moments away from discovering a three-figure rarity hiding in plain sight. As we conclude our exploration of these 6 remarkable Jefferson Nickels, I'm struck by the common thread running through each story. Whether we're discussing the Phantom Mint mark of 1992, the special strikes of 1994, the condition rarities of 1996, the post-war quality of 1946, the transitional design of 1959, or the dramatic doubling of 1990, each coin represents the perfect intersection of history, production anomalies, and collector appreciation. What makes these nickels especially compelling is their accessibility. Unlike classic rarities that command 5- or 6-figure prices, many of these special nickels can be acquired for modest sums, or potentially even found in circulation with sufficient knowledge and persistence. They remind us that numismatics isn't solely the domain of wealthy collectors with unlimited budgets, it's a pursuit open to anyone with curiosity, patience, and an eye for detail. These coins also tell a broader story of American history spanning nearly 8 decades. From the post-war optimism of the 1946 issue to the manufacturing excellence of the modern mint, each nickel captures a moment in our national journey. When we hold these coins, we're connecting tangibly with the era that produced them and the countless hands through which they've passed in the intervening years. For those of you inspired to search for these treasures, remember that knowledge is your most valuable tool. The ability to recognize what makes each of these nickels special, whether it's missing mint marks, double dies, or exceptional strike quality, transforms what might appear to be ordinary pocket change into potentially valuable collectibles. With the information shared today, you're now equipped to identify these overlooked treasures that might be hiding in your own collection or waiting to be discovered at your local bank. Until next time, happy hunting, and may your coin folders be filled with overlooked treasures. This is where history, artistry, and fortune intersect, one nickel at a time.